How am I supposed to feel this evening? I feel the joy of the new year, receiving warm greetings from friends and family. We ate lots of delicious food, tried a few new recipes, and I feel uplifted and relieved after a spectacular Rosh Hashanah here at Temple just a few days ago. But it's not over, and I'm not referring to the cooking or ironing of my shirts to be ready for Yom Kippur. I mean, we are in the midst of 10 days of serious reflection. These Aseret Yemei Tshuva are joyous, yes, but they are about reflection, honest introspection, and judicious reckoning of where we are in our lives. On one level, my anxiety as we approach Yom Kippur is already stressing about having to fast. And then I realize that on a deeper level, I'm so flawed, so stuck in my habits, so capable of judging myself incessantly that I don't know if I really believe on the 10th day of this process, which is Yom Kippur, that there will be forgiveness after all this reflection and introspection. My friends, I'm here to remind you that there is. Every week, every Shabbat, we are given the greatest gift, Shabbat Menucha, a Sabbath rest of mind, body, and soul. And you know, Yom Kippur is called the Sabbath of Sabbaths because we will be granted forgiveness and rest of mind, rest of body and soul. And tonight, as we heard earlier, is a special Shabbat. It is called Shabbat Shuvah. And we can be encouraged that our tshuva, our returning, our repenting is not in vain and need not be in pain. In our Torah portion, Vayelech Moses instructs us that the Israelites, the future generations, will make mistakes and will therefore encounter many evils and troubles. This is not a question of if, this is a question of when. And that's why in our Haftarah, the prophet Hosea teaches us how to make amends, how to return, how to do tshuva. The prophet Hosea declares, Shuvah Yisrael ad Adonai Elohecha. Return, Israel, unto Adonai, your God. And it is from this word Shuvah, return, that we name this Sabbath Shabbat Shuvah. Now, you may recall that Hosea was a prophet who understood pain and betrayal, as his wife, Gomer, betrays him again and again and again. And yet, he takes her back, each time with unconditional love. This love, a metaphor for the love between God and for us, is a powerful reminder that God looks forward to taking us back with unconditional love. Still, we need to know, what does this returning, this tshuva, what does it look like? What does it feel like? A 12th century Spanish rabbi, the Ibn Ezra, explains that this returning is done little by little. Ma'at, ma'at, one step at a time, one day at a time. This modest proposal is more than just practical advice. This is about real change. Sometimes we make things way more complicated than they have to be. You know, while taking piano lessons, my piano teacher, he called me out for not practicing. He sat me down and explained to me, he said, Feivel, I looked at him. He goes, 10 minutes a day. Just 10 minutes a day. He understood the deepest truth that I thought I needed to sit down for an hour to practice. And when I didn't have the time, I simply did not practice at all. He was so right. I began to find 10 minutes a day to create a real change in my daily schedule. It wasn't that hard. Who said that it has to be really hard? Sometimes we make things harder than they have to be. Practicing 10 minutes a day was infinitely better than where I was before, not practicing at all. Sometimes we need to compare ourselves to where we were yesterday, last week, last month, last year. Of course, we should push ourselves. And that song we just heard, Shir Shalom, that's what it does. It fills my heart with where we can be and where we can go. But if we could just do better than where we were yesterday and not compare ourselves to an imaginary future or worse to someone else, we can make small changes that will have a huge impact on our lives. And the opposite is true. When we compare ourselves to another person or an ideal version of ourselves, we may give up before we even begin. Just look at the commercial appeal from this week. The Memphis metropolitan area is no longer the worst in the country for overall poverty and childhood poverty rates for areas with more than 1 million people, according to a new census data. The greater Memphis area, which includes parts of Mississippi and Arkansas, and totals 1.3 million people, fell to second in the ratings in both categories, a place it held 2 years ago for overall poverty. Memphis now ranks below New Orleans in both overall and childhood poverty, according to the Census Bureau's American Community Survey. But the most important detail here is this. Both of those numbers are drops from 2016, when 19.4% of the total population and 30.8% of children lived in poverty. You see, Memphis is stronger today than ever. Memphis is turning in the right direction. And not because others are getting worse, but because we are improving a few percentage points each year. This is real change, this is tshuva, and this is tshuva done, as Ibn Ezra said, ma'at ma'at. This is something we can do as individuals, as families, as a congregation, and as a city. This is our source of hope, and this is our source of encouragement, to hear the call of our prophet Hosea, Shuvah, return Israel to Adonai, your God, to know that tshuva is possible, to know that it is best done little by little. And I want to end with this. For many, studying Torah can be daunting. The command of Hebrew, the terse language, enormity of literature, and yet we can be reminded that God can be found on every page, in every sentence, and in every word. So too in our interpersonal relationships. It can feel daunting. So we have to remember that God can be found in each interaction, each email, and each phone call, and each person we meet, one conversation at a time. Little by little, we can know where we are in our lives when we reflect on how we have grown, changed, and developed. So next week, in preparation for Yom Kippur, when we are ironing our shirts and cooking food for our breakfast dishes to eat, let's remember that we can make amends, we can get unstuck, we can make those small changes, because God is lovingly and patiently waiting for us this Yom Kippur. Shabbat Shalom.